Listen closely, dear listener, as I unfold before you a tale that twists and turns through the long, winding roads of hardship, sacrifice, and heartbreak. A story so laden with suspense and mystery that its echoes linger in the quiet moments of our lives. This is the story of Mariana, a humble bus driver whose entire existence was dedicated to nurturing a single precious dream, ensuring that her daughter, Rosalinda, might someday escape the chains of poverty and despair that had gripped their lives for so long. In the glow of early dawns and the tired shimmer of dusk, Mariana steered her battered city bus along worn-out routes, her eyes always fixed on the horizon of hope, a hope that glimmered in Rosalinda's innocent smile and boundless potential. Mariana's life was one of relentless sacrifice. With calloused hands and a spirit tempered by years of struggle, she had devoted herself entirely to Rosalinda's well-being. Every spare coin, every midnight hour spent cleaning, and every mile driven on those lonesome city streets was a testament to the love that burned quietly in her heart. Despite the relentless hardships, the meager wages, the ceaseless exhaustion, and the whisper of hunger that often stalked her steps, Mariana never faltered. For in her eyes, Rosalinda was not just her daughter. She was the embodiment of every promise of a brighter tomorrow. Every day, as the bus rumbled down cracked asphalt roads, Mariana's thoughts would turn tenderly to her little girl, imagining a future filled with possibilities far removed from the bleak reality they faced. Yet, fate, that capricious weaver of destinies, has a way of unraveling even the most carefully spun dreams. As Rosalinda blossomed from a bright-eyed child into a young woman, the world beyond their narrow existence beckoned with alluring promises of freedom and power, promises that would ultimately lead her astray. At first, the changes in Rosalinda were subtle. Mariana noticed the slight shift in her daughter's eyes, once so full of innocent wonder, now shadowed by secrets and whispered confidences with strangers. The girl who had once clung to her mother's every word began to spend long hours away from home, seeking companionship in corners of the city where darkness and danger lurked. One bitter autumn evening, as a chilly wind swept through the narrow lanes of their rundown neighborhood, Mariana's worst fears began to materialize. It started with small, inexplicable changes, a mysterious fragrance clinging to Rosalinda's clothes, the furtive glances exchanged over hushed phone calls, and the late-night absences that went unaccounted for. Mariana, whose heart had always beat in tune with her daughter's, felt an unsettling dissonance echo through her soul. Like a subtle shift in the wind that portends an approaching storm, these signs whispered of a transformation that she could neither halt nor fully comprehend. Desperation soon mingled with sorrow as Mariana struggled to reconcile the rosy dreams of her daughter's future with the stark reality that began to unfold before her eyes. In a moment of quiet reflection, as she sat alone in the dim light of her modest kitchen, Mariana's thoughts swirled like the steam rising from a neglected cup of tea. How could it be that the very child she had nurtured with all the love in her heart had chosen a path that promised nothing but heartbreak and ruin? And yet, beneath the weight of her anguish, a steely resolve began to take shape, a determination to uncover the truth behind Rosalinda's sudden metamorphosis, even if it meant venturing into a world as alien and perilous as the one that had ensnared her daughter. Thus began Mariana's journey, a quest for answers that would lead her through the shadowed alleys of the city and into the heart of a mystery that was as intricate as it was dangerous. With a courage born of maternal love, she started piecing together clues like a lone detective chasing whispers in the dark. The once familiar routes of her daily bus journeys now transformed into a labyrinth of hidden meanings. Every stop along the way became a potential gateway into Rosalinda's secret life. Every face among the regular passengers a possible link to a web of deceit that spanned far beyond their humble existence. Mariana's investigation was not without its perils. In the dim glow of streetlights, in the silence that followed a long day's work, she encountered figures whose eyes held the cold gleam of experience and whose words were as cryptic as they were cautionary. One rainy night, as Mariana pulled her bus over to the curb at an all-night diner, a brief respite from the relentless pace of the city, a grizzled man in a threadbare coat approached her. His voice, low and gravelly, carried a note of warning as he muttered something about lost dreams and the dangerous allure of quick escapes. Though his words were shrouded in mystery, they resonated deeply with Mariana's own growing suspicions about the forces that had begun to pull Rosalinda away from the light. As days turned into weeks, Mariana found herself drawn deeper into a web of intrigue that she had never imagined. She discovered that Rosalinda had become entangled with a group of individuals whose dealings were as murky as the midnight fog that blanketed the city. These were not mere wayward youths or the occasional bad influence. They were the architects of a clandestine world, a network of greed, betrayal, and hidden vendettas that operated in the shadows of the urban sprawl. Whispers of a secret society reached Mariana's ears, murmurs of debts owed in blood and loyalty forged in the crucible of desperation. The further she delved, the more she realized that her daughter's fall from grace was not a simple tale of youthful rebellion. Instead, it was a tragic spiral into a vortex of corruption, where the lure of easy money and false promises had ensnared her in a trap from which escape seemed impossible. There were nights when Mariana could hardly sleep, haunted by dreams of her daughter lost in a maze of treachery and despair. In those restless hours, the city's pulse seemed to echo her own, a symphony of distant sirens, murmurs of discontent, and the relentless march of time that spared no one. And yet, even in the midst of her sleepless torment, there flickered within her a spark of hope. Perhaps, if she could navigate this labyrinth of lies, she might yet find Rosalinda before it was too late. With each new clue, each hushed conversation overheard in the flickering neon glow of an abandoned storefront, Mariana's determination grew. She vowed to unravel the tangled threads of deceit, even if it meant confronting not only the shadowy figures of the underworld, but also the painful truths buried in her own past. The city, with its concrete canyons and hidden backstreets, became both an adversary and an unwitting accomplice in her quest. Mariana's long hours behind the wheel of her bus, once a routine of mechanical motions and fleeting conversations, now transformed into moments of quiet observation. Every passenger who stepped aboard carried with them a story, a secret that might be linked to the dark forces at work in the city. With the careful scrutiny of a mother determined to reclaim her daughter from the jaws of despair, Mariana began to piece together the puzzle. A young man who always sat in the back, eyes darting nervously at every turn, was eventually revealed to be an intermediary in a network of illicit transactions. A middle-aged woman with a haunting gaze, who often rode the bus at dawn, confided in hushed tones about the dangers of associating with the wrong crowd, a crowd that seemed to have a firm grip on the lives of those who dared to stray from the safe, albeit bleak, confines of ordinary existence. Slowly, like the steady drip of water eroding stone, the pieces of the mystery began to coalesce. Mariana learned that Rosalinda had been lured into a circle that promised wealth and liberation from poverty, but, in reality, demanded a price far heavier than she could ever pay. In secret meetings held in dimly lit parking garages and forgotten corners of rundown cafes, the true nature of the group's operations was revealed. They were not merely a gang of petty criminals. They were a sophisticated syndicate that exploited the vulnerabilities of the desperate. They trafficked in secrets and manipulated the hopes of those who, like Rosalinda, yearned for a life free of hardship. The deeper Mariana dug, the more she realized that this sinister network had its tendrils wrapped around many lives, leaving behind a trail of shattered dreams and irrevocable losses. One fateful evening, as a violent storm battered the city with a fury that mirrored her inner turmoil, Mariana found herself face-to-face with the person who would ultimately change the course of her investigation. In the flickering light of a malfunctioning street lamp, a figure emerged from the darkness, a woman whose presence was as commanding as it was enigmatic. This woman, known only by the name Celeste, claimed to have once been a part of the very syndicate that now threatened Rosalinda's future. With eyes that held a mix of sorrow and defiance, Celeste recounted a tale of betrayal and survival that sent chills down Mariana's spine. She spoke of the seductive power of promises that were as empty as they were alluring, of friendships forged in the crucible of desperation, and of a world where trust was a commodity bought and sold like any other. Celeste's story was both a cautionary tale and a roadmap, a guide for navigating the treacherous labyrinth of lies that had claimed so many lives. And as she spoke, the weight of her words pressed upon Mariana, fortifying her resolve to rescue her daughter from the inevitable doom that seemed to be closing in. Yet, the path to redemption was fraught with obstacles that tested Mariana's very essence. The deeper she ventured into the murky underbelly of the city, the more she began to see that the forces at play were not solely external. They had roots that reached into her own past. Long-buried secrets, once thought to be mere shadows of memory, resurfaced with a vengeance. Mariana discovered that the hardships that had shaped her life were not entirely the result of cruel fate, but also of choices made long ago by those she had once trusted implicitly. The revelation struck her like lightning, unforgiving and illuminating all at once. As she navigated this tumultuous sea of truth and deception, Mariana was forced to confront the fact that sometimes the very bonds we cherish can be the ones that hold us back, trapping us in cycles of pain and regret. Throughout this harrowing journey, the emotional toll on Mariana was immense. Every step she took in pursuit of Rosalinda's salvation was a step into an abyss where the lines between right and wrong blurred, and every decision carried the risk of irreparable loss. The suspense that wove through the fabric of her investigation was palpable, a constant reminder that time was both her ally and her enemy. With each passing day, the stakes grew higher, and the specter of impending disaster loomed ever larger over her fragile existence. In quiet moments behind the wheel of her bus, when the world outside was cloaked in the darkness of night, Mariana would stare out at the endless cityscape and wonder if she would ever be able to undo the damage that had been wrought upon her daughter's life. But even in the midst of despair, there were sparks of hope. In fleeting encounters, a kind word from a stranger, a shared smile from a fellow traveler on her bus, Mariana found the strength to continue. These small gestures were like beacons of light in a world overshadowed by malevolence, guiding her forward even when the path seemed insurmountable. And though the journey was long and the nights were cold and unyielding, she clung to the belief that love, however battered, could still triumph over darkness. The mystery of Rosalinda's descent into ruin deepened with each revelation. Mariana uncovered evidence that pointed to a betrayal so profound that it shook the very foundations of her beliefs. Rosalinda, it seemed, had been seduced not only by the false promises of the syndicate, but also by the lure of a man whose charm concealed a heart as dark as the midnight sky. This man, whose name was whispered in hushed tones, and whose presence cast a long, ominous shadow over every gathering, had manipulated Rosalinda's vulnerabilities with a precision that bordered on cruelty. His methods were subtle yet devastating. Promises of escape from their shared poverty, assurances of love and protection that ultimately led her down a path of self-destruction. Mariana's heart ached as she pieced together the fragments of a truth that was too painful to fully accept. The daughter she had nurtured with unwavering devotion had fallen victim to a master of deception, a puppeteer who pulled the strings of her fragile hopes with ruthless efficiency. As the investigation reached a fevered pitch, Mariana found herself teetering on the brink of despair and defiance. The relentless pursuit of the truth had exposed her to dangers she had never imagined, a world where every whispered secret was a potential threat and every shadow concealed a lurking menace. In the midst of this turmoil, she discovered an unexpected ally in a reclusive journalist named Raphael, whose own investigations into the dark underbelly of the city had made him a target of the same sinister forces. Raphael, with his keen eye for detail and a determination forged in the crucible of personal loss, became a confidant and partner in Mariana's quest. Together, they traversed the city's forgotten quarters, piecing together a tapestry of evidence that revealed the intricate connections between the syndicate, the mysterious stranger who had once warned Mariana, and the man who had ensnared her daughter. Raphael's unwavering commitment to unveiling the truth, even at great personal risk, rekindled in Mariana a spark of hope that perhaps, against all odds, they could still save Rosalinda from the vortex of despair. Their alliance, born out of necessity and mutual respect, led them to confront the darkest corners of the city. In a decaying warehouse on the outskirts of town, with a stench of rot mingled with the metallic tang of fear, they uncovered a cache of documents and photographs that painted a damning picture of corruption and exploitation. Every page, every faded image, was a stark reminder that the world Rosalinda had been lured into was one built on betrayal and cruelty. As Mariana's eyes scanned the damning evidence, a deep-seated anger welled up inside her. A righteous fury at the injustice inflicted not only upon her daughter, but upon countless others who had been ensnared by the syndicate's web of deceit. And yet, amid the chaos and the rising tide of revelations, a painful truth remained. The closer Mariana got to uncovering the full extent of the conspiracy, the more she realized that saving Rosalinda might come at an unbearable cost. The emotional strain was relentless. Each new piece of evidence was a double-edged sword, illuminating the path forward while deepening the wounds of loss and regret. In the quiet aftermath of a long, grueling day of investigation, as rain pelted against the bus's windows and the city's neon lights flickered like distant stars, Mariana allowed herself a moment of raw vulnerability. She recalled the countless nights spent sacrificing her own comfort for the sake of her daughter's future, the unspoken promises made in the soft glow of a humble kitchen, and the overwhelming certainty that love, no matter how fiercely expressed, was sometimes not enough to shield one from the brutal realities of life. As the storm of events intensified, the suspense of Mariana's journey reached a crescendo. One particularly harrowing night, under a sky swollen with the threat of impending doom, Mariana found herself in a deserted parking lot facing a choice that would forever alter the course of her life. With Raphael by her side, she confronted the man who had manipulated Rosalinda's hopes with a chilling, predatory calm. The confrontation was as swift as it was brutal, a collision of wills where every word was laced with venom and every gesture carried the weight of unspoken anguish. In that charged moment, under the flickering glare of a lone street lamp, the true extent of the syndicate's cruelty was laid bare. The man's eyes, once filled with the promise of escape, now shone with a cold, merciless resolve that chilled Mariana to the core. His voice, smooth yet deadly, offered no remorse. Only the cold calculation of a man who had built an empire on broken dreams and shattered lives. What followed was a tumultuous sequence of events that would test the very limits of Mariana's strength and resilience. In the ensuing chaos, the once familiar streets of the city transformed into a battlefield, a place where loyalty was bought with fear and the bonds of trust were shattered by treachery. Mariana's relentless pursuit of the truth came at a steep price, exacting a toll on her spirit that no mother should ever have to bear. The emotional scars, etched deep into her soul, were a constant reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of love, a love that, despite its purity, had been exploited and twisted by the forces of greed and ambition. Yet, even as the forces of darkness closed in, Mariana's determination burned brighter than ever. In a final, heart-wrenching confrontation that felt as though it were plucked from the depths of a nightmare, she faced the ultimate choice: to continue fighting for a daughter who had lost her way, or to walk away from the battlefield of despair and accept that some wounds were too deep to ever fully heal. With tears streaming down her weathered face and her heart pounding in defiant rhythm, Mariana chose to fight, not just for Rosalinda, but for every lost soul caught in the crossfire of corruption and betrayal. The struggle was fierce and unyielding, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a mother who refused to let the light of hope be snuffed out by the cold winds of fate. In the final, climactic moments of that fateful night, as the first light of dawn began to pierce the gloom, the layers of mystery that had shrouded Rosalinda's downfall were finally lifted. The secrets that had been so carefully guarded by the syndicate, the whispered betrayals that had haunted the dark corners of the city, all converged into a moment of staggering clarity. Mariana, battered yet unbowed, stood at the crossroads of redemption and ruin, her heart filled with a bittersweet mixture of sorrow and determination. The revelations were devastating, a tapestry of lies, exploitation, and shattered promises that not only explained the tragic choices made by Rosalinda, but also exposed the very foundations of a corrupt system that thrived on the desperation of the vulnerable. As the sun rose higher in the sky, bathing the city in a tentative light, Mariana made her final decision. With the evidence in hand and a newfound resolve burning in her veins, she vowed to bring the culprits to justice, to dismantle the web of deceit that had robbed her daughter of a future filled with promise. The journey ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but Mariana had come to understand that true redemption was found not in the absence of pain, but in the courage to face it head-on. Every tear shed, every sacrifice made, had led her to this defining moment, a moment when love, even in its most desperate form, could become the catalyst for change. Dear listener, as you absorb the echoes of this tale, a tale of a humble bus driver's unyielding devotion, a daughter's tragic descent into darkness, and the relentless pursuit of truth in the face of insurmountable odds, remember that within every heart, no matter how scarred, lies the capacity for redemption. Mariana's journey, marked by betrayal and heartbreak, yet illuminated by the fierce power of maternal love, serves as a timeless reminder that even in the midst of our darkest hours, the light of hope can still break through the shadows. In the quiet aftermath of her trials, as the city slowly stirred to life under the gentle caress of morning, Mariana's legacy endured, a legacy of resilience, courage, and the unwavering belief that every lost soul deserves a chance to find its way back to the light. And so, as I leave you with the lingering echoes of this story, a story that weaves together the threads of mystery, suspense, and raw emotion, may you carry with you the understanding that the journey of the heart is never easy, but it is in our most trying moments that the true strength of our spirit is revealed. Mariana's tale is not just a chronicle of pain and sacrifice. It is a tribute to the enduring power of love and the relentless quest for truth that binds us all. Let this story be a beacon, guiding you through the labyrinth of life, and reminding you that even when the road is dark and the night is long, the promise of a new dawn is always within reach. This is the tale of a bus driver, a mother, and a daughter, a tale of hope, despair, and the turbulent dance between the light and dark that resides in every human soul. As you carry these words in your heart, remember that every moment is a chance for redemption, every shadow a prelude to the light, and every tear a testament to the strength that lies within us all. Such is the enduring legacy of Mariana's journey, and such is the power of love to defy even the cruelest twists of fate. And so, dear listener, the story unfolds still, ever expanding, ever deepening, its mysteries interwoven with the fabric of our own lives. In the quiet rustle of the wind, in the soft hum of a bus engine cutting through the night, and in the distant echoes of a mother's unyielding love, you will forever hear the silent refrain of hope that transcends all despair. This, then, is a story that defies endings. A story that lives on in the hearts of those who dare to dream of redemption, even in a world where the roads are long and the journey is fraught with peril. May you find solace in its truth, courage in its passion, and a spark of light to guide you through the darkness. For every ending is but the beginning of a new tale waiting to be told.